Welcome back, everybody, to the Top Agent Podcast. I'm here today with my co-host, Ryan SB. How are you doing today?
Wonderful, Stacy. How are you?
I am okay. Today we have a special guest from Massachusetts that we are both looking forward to. He's got 40 years in the business, and I'd like to introduce everybody to Jim Lowenstern.
All right. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Great, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me.
You're so welcome. Now, we know that you've been in this business for 40 years, but we always like to dive into people's history a little bit. So is real estate something you aspired to be, or what did the path look like when you were deciding what career you wanted to do for the next 40 years?
I went to school for engineering, pre-med, and then a little pre-law even before starting my own retail and wholesale business in the music industry.
That's
and
quite
then
the
I
transition.
actually owned the commercial property that I was operating the business out of, and decided that retail wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. And the move was to go to California. Hated California. Sorry, California. And moved to Florida and ended up in Palm Beach for 3.5 years. And I was kind of retired at the age of about 25, 26, getting kind of bored, and got my real estate license. And that's kind of where it started.
Wow. So when you jumped into real estate, what brokerage did you join? And have you worked for a variety of brokerages, or did you stay at the same place until you came to eXp?
Back, let's see, my first broker, I lasted about a week or two before I figured out that was probably not going to be a place to make money. Yeah, they're still in business. Gustafson Real Estate, I think it was called, in Lantana, Florida, right over the bridge from where I lived in Palm Beach. And then I went up to Palm Beach, and my broker said, you can work here, but I'm not going to train you. And I thought that was a great idea. And I was there for 3.5 years before coming back to Boston. And then I sort of put into my own business. I worked for 5 companies in 5 months before I started my own company.
Wow.
I had someone put up the money, someone put up a broker's license because I only had a sales license, and then the rest is Castle's unlimited history, so to speak.
So what was the draw to jump into eXp?
I was actually introduced when there were about 300 agents, and Glenn Sanford was running a Citrix GoToMeeting video chat and introduced everyone to the world, eXp World's metaverse. And my invitation came on almost like a mimeographed trifold. It was really low quality, and it showed the revenue share. And I did the numbers, and looking back now, it's like 19 cents a share. I probably should have just bought every share I could have. But fast forward, I was using their revenue share, and program in my business was going up quite a bit every year for a few years. And I just said, I'm restricted to the 3 licenses that my brokerage has. Why not just go to all 50 states and 24 countries or whatever, and spread my my luxury branding out to the world? It solved that problem. It wasn't necessarily just the immediate income, it was the long-term business model.
That's interesting. So you're actively involved with the revenue share. Then how many people would you say you have in your organization?
I don't talk about it.
No,
it's not.
That's fair.
It's not important. The Castle's luxury group within eXp, we're well over 500 agents. We started that about 100 days ago. We're printing a luxury magazine called Castles Magazine. That's up to about 60 pages. We're adding new pages every week. And that's focused on the luxury listings that eXp agents have.
So is that exclusive to your team, Jim, or is that something that everyone that's selling luxury listings in the company can take advantage of?
Everyone.
Wonderful. So what would you say you're doing to adapt to a market that is in a shift right now?
I mean, markets are always in some kind of cycle. You know, when was the last time you heard anyone say how great everything was? There's always going to be something that they're going to find, you know, a problem, some kind of headwind. Last year, if you had a buyer, they were overpaying and struggling just to get an offer accepted. So that wasn't healthy.
No.
You know, markets tend to seek some kind of equilibrium at some point. The pendulum will swing back, and then it'll start all over again.
That's a very true story, and I've definitely seen that myself. It's a good way to put it in perspective, because 6 months ago, if you were a seller, everything was great. If you're a buyer, maybe not so much. I do have a question for you about time management, because you are a guy that has multi-heads to your organization. So how do you manage to keep that all your ducks in a row, per se, when you're doing your everyday business?
I'm probably not the person you want to learn time management from. I just put all my time into running the business. That's the only way to do it. I've got, you know, probably a dozen balls up in the air at any one moment, and you know, there's probably like 20 people I have to be speaking to right now. I literally have an offer I have to present on a small subdivision. But I'm on the show. I'm here.
So agents like myself, you know, we're always looking for advice from top producing agents like you. What advice could you give people looking to become top producing realtors?
You really have to just put the time in, and you have to meet everyone, and you have to follow up with everyone constantly. It's the only one. You know, you just have to forge relationships and build your network and figure out a way to be top of mind. I really had no, like I said, pre-vision of any of this. Honestly, I had a partner many years ago who happened to have a beautiful house with 5 condos, and I just stood in front of the house and tried to figure out what would look right on the sign. And eventually, between the 3 of us, we figured out Castles Unlimited, and that ended up on the sign. And it was years later I got the trademark, and years later that I said, let's do a magazine so our marketing could be paid for by the advertisers, and we'd have a magazine with distribution, not knowing anything about the magazine business, by the way. It wasn't a mistake, but it was a very, very expensive education. So all along the way, I've just kind of learned new opportunities presented themselves, and I went in pretty much the same direction. I just didn't realize it was all about luxury real estate. And that's probably because of the Palm Beach origins of my career.
Now, you mentioned being top of mind, and when I think about that, I think about brand awareness and brand building. What role do you feel social media is playing in our industry at the moment?
Wow, it's pretty much everything. I mean, where are people advertising? Even the magazine, when I started, it was print, it was mailed, it was something physical, and that's all digital now. Everything is digital. eXp is digital. A lot of people that aren't working for a company like eXp are still in the digital world. They're just doing it with lesser tools and maybe lesser understanding of how the world has changed. But social media is the focal point of all advertising.
This is true. That's great. Ryan, do you have anything before we jump into the...
Yeah, I do, because it's pretty rare that we have somebody with this
Yeah.
level of experience on the show. So, the question I have for you is, what is your opinion on some of the old school techniques like cold calling and door knocking and that sort of thing?
Cold calling. I don't even know if you can do it anymore.
It's well, the rules in Canada and the United States are a little bit different, but up here it's not really something you can do. You could cold call a FSBO, but picking up the telephone book and going through it is frowned upon. But
yeah, I mean, I sent out a text blast in the last week, and ironically, it was a Keller Williams broker, literally at an office across the street from my office, said, "I just reported you. It'll be $11,000 fine. Have a nice day." And it's like, well, number one, texts do not fall into that do not call list rule anyway. That's number one. But okay, so you're a competitor, or are you a realtor peer, literally in the same zip code as me, where I will probably, or you will probably have a listing and we will need to do business. And this is the way, I mean, I had no idea who this person was. This is the way you want to start a relationship with someone who you may have to do business with. So, I don't know. I don't think cold calling is necessarily the way to go. I'm focused on KV Core this year. I'm putting a good amount of energy with my team into building KV Core websites that perform. I do see the need for unlimited leads. The more the better. And I think the technology is what's really driving things. I don't think it's the active activities, the phone calling and the postcards and stuff like that. I think it's the tech. I think people go to the Google search, put in the keywords, and end up on a page with a bunch of websites, and they just see which one has the best look, the best functionality, and then it's up to the agent to get back to the customer. That's the nice thing about KV Core.
Yes.
It has a little bit of artificial intelligence there. I'm just starting to use it, so I'm a neophyte, but it looks like it's verifying information.
Yes.
To tell you whether or not it's a legit person who might be looking to buy real estate versus a spam or a scammer.
Yeah, I just have a comment about the agent reporting you. It's interesting in a couple of ways, because not only are they weaponizing something that's put in place to prevent something that is completely not your intention, but to let you know that was me that did that to you.
It wasn't the brightest move. I mean, the old Jim, when I had a little more time, I probably would have gotten a little angry, and I would have picked up the phone and called her. I just wrote her back and said, meant you no harm,
Sorry.
And then I think I investigated it and realized that it wasn't even a real violation of that act anyway. But I figured, just let it go.
That's probably the best approach. So the next questions we have are just kind of fun ones. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Too many. I mean, I'm a movie buff. Uh, pick anything. I love old movies.
Xanadu.
No, probably not. Probably not. Probably something like it's a real estate show, so we'll say The Money Pit.
Perfect.
And the scene where Tom Hanks goes to the floor in the bathtub and his hysterical laughing.
You know, I had actually forgotten about that movie, but that's the one where he shows up and he said, "Well, I told you I was taking all this stuff. It wasn't written into the offer." Yeah.
It's a great movie.
What is your favorite thing to do when you're not doing real estate?
When I had the time before the pandemic, it was probably skiing.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Now it's probably just taking the dog for a long hike.
Nice.
What book has had the most influence on you?
One of my books, probably. It's writing a book, by the way, is just a great idea for all real estate agents. It's not that difficult to do. It takes a lot of time, but it's not that difficult to do. You just have to sort of come up with a premise and bullet points, which become pretty much a table of contents, and write a chapter a day. You'd be shocked. In 2 months, you'll have a book.
What is your favorite book that you've written then? I'd like to take a look.
Your $1 Million Month in Real Estate is
probably.
That's all about eXp, actually.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. We've been putting a list together of all the books that everyone tells us is their favorite, and most of the time, being that they're from realtors, they're real estate related books or business books, so self-growth and whatnot. So I have a long list of reading to do.
Yeah, I mean, back before I even got my license years ago, there was probably No Money Down. That was a great book. Let's see, what's the other one? Good to Great. Another great one. And then there's a book. It's out of print, but whenever I find a copy on Amazon, I buy it. It's called, I think it's called The Best You Can Be, or something like that. I think the author is Thomas Irwin, and there was like a dozen real estate agents profiled. Everyone had a different way of doing business, and there was one particular woman, and I guess she's a coach now, and she's out still in California, but she would knock on like 100 houses a day, 4 days a week, and every quarter she went back basically to the same house. So she knocked on every door in her farm 4 times a year. It was fascinating, right?
Wow. And the hardest question of the day, the single best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Probably about 5-6 years ago. Buy everything you can in Florida.
That's perfect. And I know some people that took advantage of that, and they don't have to work anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was Harold Brown who gave me that advice on one of my probably one of my radio shows, and I asked him, yeah. And the other thing I asked him on that show is, because he was probably 90 years old even at that point, I asked him if there was anything he would have done differently, and he said he would never sell anything with regards to real estate. He was like the #1 real estate owner in Boston. He probably had, I think, upwards of 10,000 units at one point.
Wow. Well, Jim, where can people find you if they're looking to reach out, they're looking to pick up one of your books, or they want to take advantage of Castles Magazine?
Yeah. Well, Castles Magazine, you can just put it on your phone or browser. bit.ly/CastlesMag, bit.ly/CastlesMag. Google me, Jim Lowenstern, CastlesUnlimited.com, and not going to broadcast my cell number now, but
No.
it's out there. I haven't kept it private.
Yeah. Fantastic. We thank you so much for joining us, Jim.
Great.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it.
That's it, everybody. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll have another amazing guest. And thanks once again to Jim Lowenstern.